Have you been a dimensional being before? Starseeds are essentially dimensional beings. More often than not, extraterrestrials, aliens, interdimensional beings that look like aliens. Because when you hear the word interdimensional, you think geometry, right? You think light and love and just showing up with a crazy amount of energy, right? But more often than not, I've seen these types of beings, these interdimensional beings, and they look like aliens. Mainly because aliens can also astral project, some of which have actually transcended their form to a light body state. And so a lot of starseeds who have been aliens or extraterrestrials have actually occupied interdimensional spaces before. Because, well, it's kind of commonplace. So let's go through this one pretty quickly because my mouth has stopped working. There are 7 signs that you could have possibly been a dimensional being within your past life, including and or a starseed. Because let me tell you, you've probably been a lot of things. Matter of fact, when I was going through the ayahuasca process and I was integrating my past lives, I got to a point where I was actually quite frustrated with the fact that I had to go through the cleansing process with so many past lives. I was always taught, on YouTube, and other people had spoken to me, saying to me that you only have a few past lives. Movies even said this to me. The crazy guy in the wheelchair laughing, I've always been around. I watched a video where this guy was going around killing everyone who did him wrong within a past life because he had the ability to remember his past lives. And so he found these people by looking at their birth charts and by looking at their hospital records to see if they had any injuries within specific areas on their body. A scar on the cheek. This guy could have been Dave in a past life. He actually stole my money and ruined my relationship. Then he goes and kills Dave. And it was a good movie. I liked it. My family didn't like it. But I'm saying all this to say that when I was forced to go through my past lives, I didn't enjoy it because there were times where I was in resistance to going through the process because it was just too much. I like to use the analogy of a grain or a bag of rice. Now imagine if someone took this bag of rice. The kilo is a lot. But hey, let's just put it to like 4 kilos. They split it open in front of you and they said to you, every one of these pieces of rice represents one of your past lives. I want you to go through each grain, count them, clean them, look at them, and then move on to the next one. And there's no guarantee that will be it, essentially, right? And so if you look at those odds, you've most likely been here so many times before, yeah, in 3D, but the odds are stacked in your favor in regard to you possibly having experienced multi-dimensional planes of existences as a location of which that you would call home. Number 1, find it hard to communicate. If you've been a dimensional being, you find it hard to communicate because most dimensional beings don't speak English. And so when they're incarnated into Earth, they speak through emotions, through vibration, through chakras. They speak through energy within their energy bodies. And because they can feel energy from their friends and family, their peers within other dimensions, it becomes very easy to interpret how another person is feeling and to put across a specific frequency so that that person or interdimensional being on the receiving end can understand exactly what you, if you were an interdimensional being, are saying to your friend, your spirit buddy, right? These feelings can get so specific, so precise, that they can communicate entire textbooks of knowledge in fractions of seconds because they're really quick with their emotions. Don't believe me? You can try out this exercise if you want to test what I'm saying. First off, you need a basic premise, a basic understanding of words and intention and frequency. That being, behind every one of your thoughts, there's an intention, right? And so to have an intention, you have to have some kind of emotion emoting up into your brain, causing you to specifically select certain words that match said intention. That intention can be seen as a vibration, as an emotion that you're emoting. And so what I want you to do is I want you to say inside of your head, let's say apple, in your head over and over and over again. Then tone down your internal dialogue until eventually it's mute, you'll find that you're just feeling the word apple instead. Speed that up as fast as you can. You'll notice that you can speed it up to a blip. If you want, you can practice this technique with an entire sentence, and you'll notice that you can actually internally communicate that sentence in a moment. Okay, this is how dimensional beings speak. And so if you've been a dimensional being before, you would have gotten used to that mode of communication. Coming here on Earth, or incarnating here into a vessel, comes with its challenges because everyone else here only speaks in a more refined, verbalistic way, if that's a word, of communicating how they feel. And so it's not easy to pick up this other end. I call it the collapsed end. That you're collapsing emotions and thoughts and intentions into a verbal structure that can actually be carried through air and reciprocated via the eardrum of the person that you're speaking to. There's a lot going on there. It's much easier just to feel. The second sign that you've been an interdimensional being before within many past lives or a past life, I doubt it, a past life, pretty sure many past lives, is that you excel at everything art, media, or sound related. Because, let's face it, in these other dimensions, if you've taken psychedelics, LSD, ayahuasca, San Pedro, magic mushrooms, truffles, psilocybin, mescaline, I think that's one, then you would have become familiar with the very vibrant, exuberant nature of these interdimensional planes of existences. When you go to these planes of existences and you come back, you gain a new level of inspiration in regard to art. But more importantly, if you've been living there for the most part before this incarnation, you naturally bring that through to this dimension anyway, and it's expressed subconsciously, intuitively in your artwork. If you're drawn to abstract paintings, you've probably been a dimensional being. If you're drawn to specific sounds and tones, those bells that you often hear, those singing bowls that you'll often hear within specific, then it's probably because it's ringing a bell, an internal bell. Something is resonating. No pun intended, it just feels like home. It feels very familiar to you. And so you'll be drawn to these different aspects of art, and you'll just excel at them because it's easy for you. Now, I'd like to mention that, yeah, for the most part, a lot of what I'm saying can be relatable because of other reasons. Maybe your mom or your sister was into art, and so you naturally gravitated towards art. I'd actually argue that maybe that was divine intervention, kind of encouraging you to bring out something in you. But hey, they have to give credit where credit is due. You know, there are other ways of influencing your nature, your creative nature. And those ways are pretty cool too. This one's kind of depressing. Having a deep sense that you've arrived at a place that you don't belong. This one kind of sucks because it's hard to feel at home here if you haven't felt connected to this dimension at all, in a very deep sense of the word. I only actually felt like home here after taking psychedelics, because then I opened up to the rest of me in this dimension, the earth plane. You know, the birds, the dirt, the air, the fire, the wind, the water, all of the things that make up the elemental kingdom are just other sides of source consciousness, be that a larger part of you. And so when you take these psychedelics, you melt into all that is you, and you feel more connected. This place feels more familiar, i.e., feeling more like home. And so, if you don't have that, it can feel like you're lost. It can feel like you've arrived somewhere that feels so foreign and so different from the other dimensions that you're used to being connected to. You'll know if this is the case for you because you would have been into stargazing obsessively as a child growing up. Certain science programs would have, about physics, talking about physics and algebra, might have felt very warming to you whilst listening to all of those equations that sound complicated to most people, but to you sound like music. Probably because you came from the stars, you came from another dimension. And when I say the stars, you've probably heard of how there are many universes, right? And there are many densities of existences. And this is the weird thing. When you transition from one density to another, it's that transition point that you call a plane. That's a plane right there. It's the transition point. It's not the entirety of one density before it gets to the transition. And so the dimensional planes are separated by these conjunctions, these conversion points. And that's what you would consider as the first, second, and third plane of existence. And so when you bypass the conversion point, you end up into a different phase, a different area of existence, where if there was just a black void in the emptiness of space, if you were to shift it to a different density, then it would have been possibly, could have been, most definitely is, given probability, another location where something else actually occupies that space. Another planet that's of a different frequency, where these extraterrestrials exist, interdimensional beings exist also. As you go throughout the densities, these earth planes don't actually have to, like spherical objects, I say earth planes because they're of matter, you know? You can call it exotic matter when you shift into different dimensions, different densities, and you would also be correct in saying that. And because of that, those spheres that occupy said space don't have to abide by the same laws of physics. That's when you'll get planets that are flat, At that point, I don't even call them planets. They're just literally, I don't know what you call them. Here's a cool one. Sign number 4. You feel like you've known specific people within your life before. For entire lifetimes. You just feel like you're connected to them, not just because they're you, but because you have some kind of relationship, having already been formed within the past life. If that's the case, gauge the depth and the complexity of said connection. Because if it feels like you've known them for over 100 years, the odds are is that you've lived for longer than 100 years within another dimension before you manage to achieve that here. Because it's kind of hard to do that here if you don't know how. In other dimensions, though, you live a very, 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 very long time. And so it's more likely that you would have known said person. It could be your mum. It could be your girlfriend. It could be your dad or your brother within a past life, under a different title even. These past encounters can incarnate as your mum, whereas within your previous life, they were your girlfriend or your brother or your sister, or they were your next door neighbor. And sometimes they can just show up within the middle of the street, a passerby. For example, you're crossing a zebra crossing, and you see someone, and for a moment you feel like you know that person, and then they continue to go the other way. You're looking, and then you turn your heads into either direction. That could be someone you've known for thousands, heck, millennia. You don't have to connect to them long term whilst you're here. That would be nice, but sometimes all you need is that little wake-up call. Sign number 5, you have a sense that you're going to live forever. This is because you're used to living for long durations of time. Not only that, but you understand on a deep level that death isn't the end. Literally, it's just transitioning process. You're changing into a different form. This will often reflect within your life by you being a health freak or a health nut. That's more polite way of saying it. I'm a health nut. And just taking care of yourself to the extreme level in some people's eyes. I think you're just doing a good job. We're doing a good job. Number 6, you're good at finding patterns in things. This is because within other dimensions, everything is pretty much governed by geometry, patterns, numerology, mathematics, advanced mathematics. And so you're used to reading the environment within those dimensional planes in order to attain specific information from other dimensions, kind of like an interdimensional communication system. You look at one part of the ceiling and it's looking like it's moving quite a bit into all these weird, complicated shapes and colors. You just think a certain way and that reality responds to your thoughts. You don't have to actually touch, the buttons on the dial pad. You just think. It can sense you because it's alive. Every dimension's alive. And then it changes adequately, creating a specific formula which then connects to another dimension. The other being can be on the other end staring at their ceiling, being like, oh, hi, Dave. So you'll notice patterns in specific things because you're used to using patterns to communicate to other parts of existence, be that other dimensions. You can actually speak to other planes of existences, including the inhabitancies of those planes of existences. And so when you're here, pattern finding becomes very easy for you. You can look at something, word searches, stuff like that. If you're a kid, you'll probably be drawn towards the more puzzler to the other. That's a new word, right? All words made up, says Thor. You'll be drawn to puzzles a little bit more than other games. That's a sign that you've most likely been a dimensional being within a past life. Number 7, this is one that I like. You feel the most at peace when you're asleep. This is because you're traveling to other dimensions, okay? It's not the same as astral projecting but this doesn't mean that it's not as valuable, because it really is. It really is. When you shift your consciousness to another density of existence, going through these different planes, these conversion points, depending on where you're going will depend on how your consciousness needs to change, how it needs to take a different form in order to have you, the consciousness, experience that point of existence. And any body that you need to be in, this could be your inner reality, your external reality, this could be another place that seems like a dream because you're carrying out a specific theme to that storyline. Maybe you're now a girl and you're in a relationship. Maybe you're a store owner, of a pet store. It could be anything, any kind of theme. And so every now and then when we go to sleep, we transition to these different densities. That's just a given. They're all real. I'll get into that on another video because it's kind of long-winded. Just know that your dreams are real, and this is real also. Everything that you ever think is real in some way, shape, or form for their own reasons. And so it will feel like home. These places will feel like home because you're freely able to express yourself as a dimensional being when you transition through these planes into these points of existences. You'll feel very familiar to you. Not only that, but the death process of turning into a different being, when you shift into these other dimensions, your ego drops and you take on another persona, or you shed a body and you shift it into another body, that's technically a death. And so every time you go to sleep, you're dying to become something else, to exist somewhere else. Every time you do that, that feels very natural for you. Because, well, it should do. Intuitively, it should feel natural. Because you've done it so many times before in less denser realities, because that's just normal for you to shift into other dimensions so quickly. And to retain a specific amount of consciousness. This is why lucid dreaming becomes very, very familiar to a lot of us too. It feels very nice, feels very homely, feels very familiar to us. Because we're able to carry a large amount of awareness into a lucid dream, into another phase of reality. And so we're used to doing that within other dimensions all the time. That's how we carry our identity, our experiences, everything that we've learned into the next plane. And so going to sleep for us feels like home. But hey, don't take my word for it. I want you just to sit with what I've just said to you, and then kind of contemplate ways of attaining said information through your own experiences to validate this video and your subtle belief that maybe you have been here before, just in a different form. I'm Ryan James Cropper. This has been your potential. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit that bell icon in order to be notified of other videos or when I release them on my YouTube channel. I'll speak to you pretty soon. Peace.